Hollow Knight is a very enjoyable game that does a lot of things very well, like its exploration, boss battles, movement, and lore. Oh yeah, speaking of lore and story, I'm about to spoil the whole game. If you haven't played Hollow Knight yet, I recommend that you do before watching. Hollow Knight is best gone into blind. Hollow Knight starts with the player falling into a pit, with nothing and no idea of what your goal is. This area functions as the tutorial, where you learn the basics. The tutorial fits the game well and does a good job at blending in with the rest of the world. Once you finish the tutorial, you jump off a cliff into Dirtmouth. Dirtmouth is basically just the hub where all the merchants are. Also, you meet Elderbug. Once you're done talking with Elderbug, you jump down a well into the Forgotten Crossroads, where the game truly begins. The Forgotten Crossroads teaches you the basics of exploration, like how there will be roadblocks like levers and gates, or areas you can't get past because you don't have the correct upgrades, and sets the tone for the rest of the game. While you're exploring, you'll meet Cornifer. He sells maps, but the main catch is that they're incomplete. The maps he sells you do show you points of interest like the False Knight boss fight, but if you want to update it, you'll have to buy it from the map shop up in Dirtmouth, along with a compass that lets you see where you are on the map. Something important that I should mention is that the map only updates when you sit on a bench. They are basically the game's respawn save points. All of this combines into a satisfying system where you will find yourself getting lost and then finally figuring out where you are again. Also, it helps that this game is gorgeous and filled with things to discover, like upgrades that help you get past the roadblocks I mentioned. Most of these upgrades are a reward for beating a boss, which brings me to the next point. Boss fights are known for being extremely difficult. It's very important to know that you are very fragile in this game, and on my first playthrough, I got destroyed by every boss I fought. However, I slowly learned how to overcome each boss by learning their movesets, finding out what charms are the best for each boss, and when it's safe to heal. And now, on my fourth playthrough, I can get through most of the bosses on my first try. As you get farther into the game, the bosses get extremely chaotic and demand all of your attention. The best examples of these crazier kind of bosses that I have successfully beaten are the dream bosses like Veiled Champion, Nightmare King Grim, and the Radiants. The majority of boss fights in Hollow Knight are pretty fun as a result. However, you can't have good bosses in a 2D game without good movement. The movement in Hollow Knight is pretty well done and fits the game well. The Knight's moveset consists of jump, double jump, wall climbing, dash, which later gets an invulnerability upgrade that you abuse the fuck out of, and Crystal Heart. Crystal Heart is basically just flying in a straight line. You can also do a pogo bounce when you hit spikes, but overall the movement is pretty simplistic, but it gets the job done. However, I will say that the platforming in this game gets pushed to its limits with the White Palace. The platforming is fun, but it gets incredibly stressful because of how fragile you are. You have very little health and it drains fast if you're not careful. Anyway, since I brought up the White Palace, I would actually like to talk a little bit about the game's lore. Hollow Knight does a great job at its world building. Hollow Knight mostly builds its world through item descriptions and dialogue like lore tablets and conversations with characters. For example, one of the characters you meet is Quirrell. He is one of the most common characters you'll run into and will give you information on the area you're in. Quirrell also eventually ties into the main story after he helps you in the Umu fight. There's also Hornet, who starts as an enemy but later becomes an ally. Also, she's the character you play as in Silksong. The lore in Hollow Knight can be very cryptic, so I'm not even gonna bother explaining all of it. Plus, there's a Mossbag video that explains the lore way better than I ever could. I just really appreciate it when a game has a lot of lore around it. I just really think it adds character to the whole experience. Hollow Knight has quickly become one of my favorite games over the time that I've owned it. What can I say, but Team Cherry did a great job with it, and I'm pretty excited for Silksong once it releases, and I will definitely be covering it. I'll see you all in the next video.